waiting for, or anticipating something to start or something to end. You know, it's like, what is that? Like we do that with our lives. I'm waiting for my life to start. You know? And it's like the mini versions of that, one of which we've just been in, and somewhat still are maybe. It's all the same, whether on a little scale or the big grand. You know, the thing of this that's happening isn't really it yet. And we move from start to finish to the grave doing that. And we don't have to do that anymore. This is it. Before the thing starts, this is it. And it's not different after the thing starts. It's still all there is. And that is never going to change. You can know it or not know it while you're in it, I mean. And when you're in it, it's the only place it's possible to be. And when you really get that in your bones, all the problems go away. Whatever looked like problems are gone. Do you know what I'm saying? The wishing or dreading or, you know, anticipating the thing that's next is, it's like we're slowly digging our daily graves when we do that. Yeah, it's bleak. Except when it's not anymore. You know, when you see that you're doing it and you just let yourself really be where you are. Let it be enough. That's all there is. When you know that, just in this moment, know it. What do you know? It's okay. Whatever the circumstantial stuff is that your mind could visit, it's just out there somewhere, but it doesn't inform this right now. And God, we want it to. Constantly, we want to make reference to the outer situation, the circumstances, as if that's life. Just feel that you're here in the place that you're sitting or lying. Just feel the physical, sensations in your body. There's nothing good or bad about any of it. Maybe there's pain. Maybe your stomach's growling. Whatever's there, just let there be space for it. It is occurring. It's some kind of real. In some way, it's real. Because it's happening. It's not what you deeply are, but it's one of the ways you have of being able to feel that you're here, that you're alive. Shut your eyes if you'd like. Notice when you're distracted, sound, movement, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just, your distraction is neither good nor bad. And the thing that the distracting is neither good nor bad. It's just something that's happening. What does it feel like when it becomes just something that's happening? What would your life feel like if you didn't move through it constantly assessing good, bad, like it, don't? That's possible right now. What relief comes when that happens? So let your awareness flood whatever is occurring on your interior and in the room and whatever your senses are able to perceive. Let neutral awareness, like light, flood it without pushing anything away or deciding if it's good or bad or if this is the right way to be or the wrong way to be. Forget all that. Just let awareness reach into all the spaces of whatever is here. The way when you drop food coloring into a glass, there's no bit of the water that doesn't get colored. No part of that water holds itself away. So let your awareness be like that drop of food coloring. Allow. If you're thinking, allow it. Don't try to stop it. Feel the space around your thoughts. Feel what it's like to let the thoughts occur without getting invested in them or trying to stop them or deciding whether they're good thoughts or bad thoughts. If you sense any holding away, any tension in your body, flood it with awareness. There is not a right way to do this. Let the consideration of right and wrong float away. Just feel yourself be. You don't have to hold yourself. You don't have to hold yourself away from anything. What's the earliest vivid memory you have in your life? Let yourself revisit that moment. Picture it, or feel it, or hear it, whatever the sensations are that come to you. Let yourself revisit that early memory, just for a moment. Now, who was the first person you ever fell in love with? Let yourself go to that person, that feeling, the place where you were. Go to the first death you experienced. The feelings that were so strong in you then and maybe are still. Just touch it. The feeling of it. Turning point in your life, some significant moment after which everything was different. Go back to that. And let the feeling of that come into you for a few moments. How things changed. And now what happened this morning? What ordinary, maybe, ordinary thing occurred? What can you remember about the morning before you got here? Revisit it just a little. Did you have a conversation, an argument? Was breakfast wonderful or awful, or did you skip it altogether? The drive here or the ride on the T? Now it looks as though those moments you just revisited are in a kind of a line. One happened previous to the other. One happened more recently than the others. This morning. What happened this morning, whatever it was, including 1 minute ago, is just as gone as your earliest memory. It's no more important. It's all gone. It really did happen, and it's not happening now. Notice how the more recent things, or the more formative things, seem to want to convince us that they're more worth paying attention to now. The past is all in one place. The place that it's in is not now. The fact that it's not now is the most important thing about it. Not how significant it was, not how it shaped who you are. The most significant thing is that it happened in the past. And notice how the ego doesn't like that. When the past is really gone, you're free. What feeling does that bring up in you? Sit with that. Doesn't mean that things didn't happen. What is it to know that something happened and to not be carrying it now? What is it to be able to remember something and not have it be in your now? Open your eyes if you want to. When you use the word I mean the pronoun. When you think of yourself or make reference to yourself in speech or introducing yourself to someone, Just sit with that for a moment. What does I, your particular I, conjure for you? What is it? How do you picture yourself? How do you tell about yourself? What's the feel that you have when you say or think I? Let this play in your awareness for a moment. Just let in whatever will come. Don't manage it. Like if you suddenly learned you were about to lose yourself, you had 5 minutes to live, what is it that you would be losing? What's precious? What do you have your teeth sunk deep in as being what you are? Feel what that is. Don't manage it. This isn't about what it should be. There's no should here. How do you imagine other people see you? How would you like to be? Or how is that different from what you are? When you go looking for yourself, what is it that's doing the looking? What is it that attunes itself to your sense of what you are? Ask yourself this. What knower in there tastes that? How does it get assembled in your awareness, the sense of what you are? How do you know what you are? And how much of it is memory? You learned previously that you were a boy or a girl, and you've remembered that. You're reminded of it in your life experience of your gender. What if you didn't know what gender you were? Would you still be able to feel that you're here? Gender is very basic. There's 500 million other things that are not so basic that still seem to be very much part of your sense of yourself. It's massive. And virtually all of it requires you to go into your mind, to revisit what you know yourself to be, your beliefs, your history, your present life situation, your longing, your fear. In order for you to get access to that stuff, you have to turn on your thinker. And if I ask you, directly encounter that you exist, somehow, something in you is able to sense that directly without turning on your thinker. One of those things is the experience of life. The one that requires you to make reference to the contents of your mind is at a remove from life. And the ego goes apeshit over that. Because if all you can directly know of yourself, which is an actual life, which is momentary only, if all you can know about that does not involve stepping into your mind to revisit your history and all the rest of it, then the sense of self has suddenly become way pared down, a momentary phenomenon. And the ego wants to say, oh no, but wait, I've had all these wonderful experiences in my life. I've learned all these things. That's all who I am too. And that's why we suffer. And that's why sometimes when there's a momentary experience of the familiar self dissolving or not seeming real, it can be frightening. Right? You maybe had this. But it's only the ego that's frightened. The thing that we deeply are isn't frightened at all. So if I could ask Cambridge, if Cambridge were an entity that I could have a conversation with, and I said, Cambridge, when you think I, Cambridge, what does that represent to you? There'd be some answer that any of us could probably supply, having to do with boundary, government, activities, weather, all that. But if, during one of our breaks today, if I asked you to, when you go outside, look for Cambridge, see if you can find, digging in the dirt or examining the trees or the air around the trees or the buildings or something. If you could find Cambridge, you just could not do it. Cambridge exists. You have to go into your mind for the word Cambridge, for the I-ness of Cambridge, or the you-ness of it, to have a referent. We are the same to ourselves and to one another. So each person here, how you imagine you're seen by other people, or stories told about, or good stories, bad stories, doesn't matter. What stories you tell about yourself, that's all like defining Cambridge. But if you go looking for, right now in this moment, 5 minutes before you're going to die, the precious something, the way you can tell you're here, the thing that you so want to have more of, the fundamental thing is not something rememberable. It's not accumulated experience. And yet, it's real. You know it. When you sense that directly, without going into your mind to get a sense of yourself, when you have that direct feeling of radical vitality, or knowing, seeing, sensing, self, other, doing something with your whole heart and creative devotion, or when you're loving, so God, you're here. And for that stretch of time, however long it lasts, all the other stuff is just out there somewhere. All your issues, and the ego, if you make note, please stay aware today, and not just today, of what when you encounter something like this, when you have an experience like this, where you hear somebody saying this kind of thing, make note of when there's anxiety or fear or elation, or constantly our bodies, really, it's physical, are giving us indications of what the ego thinks of that. Often it is the ego that's responding in some way. It feels threatened or gratified or something. It's always there consulting. I like this, I don't like this, I don't get that. Oh, I know what this means. So notice that kind of thing occurring. And I meant to say this earlier. I really encourage you not to write things. Because there's something that thinks, if I don't have that intermediary thing going of writing it down, I won't, whatever good there might be or insight I might be having might lose itself. There's fear there. And well, what happens is you need to turn on the thinker. It's the thinker that wants to hold on. The thing in us that already knows everything that matters, already knows. And if something means something to you that you're reading or you've experienced, the reason it means something is that you already recognize it. If you don't, if something in you doesn't go like this, like a gong or a, what do you call it? An earthquake, tuning fork, yeah. Or a thing that picks up shutters in the earth. Thank you, yeah. If something in you doesn't do that, all the remembering in the mind and the world will not help you. And if something, you have an experience that where you can feel yourself changed, you don't have to remember that. It's with you now. It's become part of who you are. And if that hasn't happened, all the trying to remember in the world will not help. So you're much better off to just be there for what occurs, and nature takes its course. Truly. So if I ask you, if I make reference to your life, that expression, or if you're talking, you say something about my life, what is that? Somebody say, what does my life mean? What does that bring up for you, just like in 5 words? Somebody say it.
Career.
Career, what else?
Worry.
Worry, did you say?
Yeah, worry, stress.
Yeah,
The story of the last 2 or 3 months.
last 2 or 3 months.
Passion. Family. History.
So some of it, sometimes my life, okay, if I ask you to directly encounter your life, in the direct encounter, without making reference to what's up here, remembering your, whatever the bigger picture is, my life, all you directly know of my life is this moment right now. But that's not what comes to us. We have, it's like in a storeroom. If somebody's, you see somebody you haven't seen in a while and they say, how's your life? So what they mean is nowadays. So my life is, so you trot out, you go to the storeroom and you sort of remember what job you're doing now, or how long you've been unemployed, or what relationship you're in, or what your health is like, or how you're doing spiritually. And that's what you tell them, that you have an idea of my life, which means things as are happening right now. Or it may be a short period of time, back several months, lately. Or it might be when you're having a sleepless night, dark night of the soul, or kind of a moment of truth, like you turn some significant age or something that causes you to revisit your history. My life means every significant thing that's happened so far, so it's a thing over time. And it might be looking ahead to the imagined whatever's left, like you recently got a terminal diagnosis, or you've always imagined that you'll live to be 105 because all of your grandparents did. So sometimes it's, looking ahead to what's left of my life. Whether you're, as you're presently looking at it, your sense of my life is the looking before and ahead, or whether it's looking at the present situation, my life, first it's necessary to go into your mind in order to look at what is that. You say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, there's nothing wrong with it. But it's really important to see that there's a difference between anything you have to go into your mind to look at and direct knowing, direct feeling experience. Anything you have to go into thought to get access to is at a remove from life. That's why we suffer. Because something in us thinks, because the mind can be very helpful at helping avoid danger if you're walking through the jungle, but see, we experience our lives as walking through the jungle. But something we have taught ourselves through evolution and through our own growing up and becoming adults to think that it's necessary to go into the mind to assess, label, make a story about, because not to do that would constitute some kind of danger, threat. So thinking isn't bad. It's just not the same thing as life. And because we're in our heads so much of the time, you can't be in your head and living at the same time. So what does this mean? It means that when it comes time to die, a lot of people think, oh my God, I missed my life. Where did my life go? And the classic answer to that is, I didn't spend time the way I ought to have or wanted to. That's why we always want more time, so we can finally do the thing that we imagine will fulfill us or give us pleasure or help us recover from whatever the past delivered. I want to tell you a little story. Someone that I'm close to, a while ago, learned that she had cancer. And in the same month, her husband told her, this is before I got the order wrong, the first thing was her husband told her he didn't want to be married to her anymore. The total shock. She had not seen it coming. She was glad to be with him. Then she found out she had cancer. Now, this is someone who is very upbeat and has enormous energy and joy and all of that. Things don't get her down very much. But that particular month was rough. And she was angry, she was aghast. She thought of herself as physically healthy. She didn't think somebody like her would get cancer. You know, thought things were pretty good with her partner, all this. So she cried a lot during those first weeks. One day she told me this story, I wasn't there for it. And the fact that she told this story is significant. It tells you something about what awareness can do and what we're awake to, as in recognizing something as valuable and instructive and so on. And this impressed itself upon her enough that she told me about it, and now I'm telling you about it. And you will recognize yourself in this story. Or I wouldn't bother telling it. This is not about her. It's about us. So one day she was in her bedroom, feeling horrible, scared and heartbroken and out of control, like she wasn't in control of her life. Sobbing, sobbing, sobbing. Oh my God. Just letting her heart break. Because that's all she could do right then. Just fell apart. And she just kind of physically collapsed, sank down onto the floor, had her head in her hands, and all of a sudden, because she was on the floor next to her bed, in her line of sight was the underneath of the bed, which is not a place we often see. And there under the bed was a shoe that had been missing for a really long time. And she went from, heartbreaking to, oh my God, there's that shoe. You're laughing because you see, you recognize it. But you see, so there she was thinking, I'll be darned. Remembering how long she looked for the damn thing. She probably got rid of its mate a long time ago. She gave up the spirit of her friend. And then, bless her and bless us, the light went on in her awareness. She suddenly realized how, for a moment, when something got her attention, you could say distracted her from her misery. For that moment, her entire affect changed. Now, we know, she knew, that she still had cancer. Her husband was still leaving her. It's not about, is the circumstantial thing still true? Is it real? The ego wants to think that's the issue, that it's still an ongoing, or perhaps a past, a significant historical something that's still having its influence. The ego wants so badly to think, oh no, but this really is this horrible, I really am unemployed and all my bills really are late, or whatever. So here you can, this is not about run out and see how many lost shoes you can find. It's not about distraction. It's seeing the power that the mind has to insert into this moment of actual life. This is life. Okay? The circumstantial stuff out there, if she's not having to deal with the cancer right now, if her husband isn't in the room, or there isn't a divorce lawyer, it's like, in some really significant way, the thing right now is not real. And when you see the shoe under the bed, or how about you're having a terrible fight with your mate, and you're just, like ready to kill, and you've been at it for a while, and it feels like so much is riding on this, and we go through this all the time, and I'm sick to death of it, blah, 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 and everybody's heated up. And the phone rings, you say, hello, and your mother says, your dad's just had a heart attack. What happens to the juice in the fight? The ego wants to say, it's because the heart attack is much more important than the fight. That's not it. It's so, when something like that happens, it's so important to watch it. Notice the machinery, how things shift in you. Ask yourself what it's about. If it's there, of course you're not going to do it right then. You're going to be getting in the car and going to the hospital. But somewhere in you, maybe later, you'll go back and, and these, the cancer and divorcing husband and the father with a heart attack, those are crisis kinds of things where it's easy to see, but the same thing goes on in miniature in a more quiet, subtle way all day long. We think about something, we bring something to awareness, present life situation, something that's going on out there, you know. As soon as we remember it, it's as if somehow the reality of it is somehow brought to bear on this exact direct moment of sensation and feeling. And if you can see that functioning, and when the ego comes in and says, protests with your higher self, no, but it's really important. Realize it's the ego saying it. The ego and the mind are in cahoots. The ego uses the mind, it relies on it to keep its sense of truth and reality going. Your whole sense of needing to maintain yourself and being under siege and needing to feel good about yourself and all that constantly is depending upon, you know, the mind does its dirty work. That in us that's kind-hearted, that cares and loves our loved ones will say, and this is all ego, almost all, the love is real, but all the junk around it will say, oh, if my mother is facing going into a nursing home, or my child is in a crisis, or my, you know, whatever it is, there's always something. If that thing is occurring nowadays, or maybe right this moment, but in another state somewhere in the country, the ego and the mind are always kind of scanning the landscape. You know, is there something I need to be thinking about right now, worrying about, sending good feelings to, or something. As if something in us that's completely insane deeply believes that we need to keep thinking about something if it's true. And that if we forget about it for a moment, we're being neglectful or unloving, or, you know, it's like your willingness to see that kind of assumption operating and the power it has to determine how much you are in your life or how much you're in your head is enormous. It's so rich and valuable. This isn't about trying to get yourself to stop this kind of thought. Even as I'm saying these kinds of things, you may feel like, oh, you know, helpless. Oh my God, but yeah, I know it goes on, I know, but what am I going to do about it? I couldn't stop it. You don't have to stop it. It's not about stopping it. It's about recognizing it for what it is. That's all. That's all. There's a difference between any thought and actual life. Whether it's a judging thought, like something that's actually occurring right now in your literal moment, present moment experience. Whether it's the kind of thought that's assessing, you know, labeling, thinking, oh, I want to remember this. I don't like this. What the hell's going on here? Any kind of intervening thought that feels like it's got to get hold of this present moment and know what to make of it. Whether it's that kind of thought, it's in the way of you directly experiencing life. So there's that kind, and the other one that I was talking about before has to do with looking at your history, or your sense of who you are, your sense of yourself. When some thought, I'm not talking about, when I say thought, I'm really talking about the kind of thought that serves at the pleasure of the ego, which is 98% of our thought. Don't imagine that it's less than that. We do have what I call clean thoughts, and I don't mean Christian moral thoughts. I mean useful, you know, the kind of thought where you're, you know, learning how to do something, learning a language, or explaining to somebody how to get somewhere, or, you know, I'm not talking about that kind of the kind of thought that our minds are wonderful at and that don't cause us to suffer. I'm talking about all the other stuff. So when you notice that you're doing one of those 98% kinds of thoughts, and very often, what causes us to realize we're thinking in that way? Did somebody say? What is it that makes you suddenly realize you're up in your head?
Your body's upset.
Your body's upset.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some kind of discomfort, tension or agitation.
My awareness gets very small.
Well, say it again?
Looks like my awareness gets small, like it's all very mental versus
Yeah.
multidimensional.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very-
Yeah. So, God, pay attention. The body is we're so lucky to be physical. Because, among other things, the body is a really reliable indicator of, so we don't like to experience discomfort. We like to feel good. So when something like that happens, there's tension or whatever it is, notice what's going on. Very often, what's going on is something up here. The ego wants to say, oh no, what's going on is what's happening out there. Well, if you want to stop suffering, question that. Yes, there's something happening out there maybe, but then what's the intervening thing? The mind started up with its managing it or labeling it or resisting it or something. So all you have to do is see that it's occurring. Don't stop it. You can't stop it, as you may know. But you don't have to. You can rest from that pointless effort of trying to stop your mind from doing that. Someone gave me a book recently that had a wonderful line in it. He said something like, what gives thought its power over us is its being unobserved. How radical is that? And so clean and simple. Simply seeing the thought. That thought is occurring. Oh my God. In order for thought to cause the body thing, you have to have entered into it as if its rendering is reality. It can't affect you that way if you haven't first abandoned what you secretly know, which is that you made the thought. You created the thought. Never mind why. You did. It's a product of the thinking mind. In order for you to be emotionally affected by a thought, you have to first have made yourself forget that the thought is a made thing. So as soon as you see, remind yourself, remember by some lucky thing because your body gave you a cue or whatever, or you just got conscious for some reason, to see it's a thought. That's all you have to do. It's like it pulls the plug out of it. You might have to do it again 3 seconds later. That's okay. That's okay. Don't forget about the once and for all thing. Okay? All that's real is what's occurring right now. So if a thought has got you in its teeth, and you feel you're going round and round and round about the awful thing that could happen, or whatever it is, as soon as you see that it's a thought, and let yourself sense the space around the thought. This is a way you can sort of hold that awareness without having the thought restart. Is the thought the whole world? It felt like it when you were deep in it. But if you sense, is there space around the thought? Oh, what do you know? And you feel your body relaxing. Oh, yeah. It isn't the whole world. And if you suddenly saw the shoe under the bed, that'd be a visual reminder if the phone rang with the news about, when we're in it, it really is the whole world. Now, what does the ego do? when you could say the higher awareness and you recognize it, oh, there's thinking going on, oh. The ego comes in from the wings and says, oh no, but it's an important thought. Or no, but it's a true thought. No, it's really true. Doesn't matter. And the ego does not know what to do with that. It doesn't matter whether it's true. Oh, it just makes the ego go batshit. You see what I mean? You forgot about something for a minute because you saw the shoe under the bed. And then when it comes back into your awareness, something in you feels like, oh, something about that lapse where there was a break in the action. You feel guilty because you let down your vigilance, or you feel the relief that you briefly felt was stolen somehow because the situation is really true. Watch all that happening. You know, that's all mental. But the ego does not want that to be the case. Yeah.
I find that like there's both this attempt to there's some feeling that's present, sadness and whatever, a feeling, and there's sometimes the attempt to, oh, I don't want to feel this, versus just being with the feeling. And then likewise, I'm with the feeling and something happens at the shoe, great example, right? Something, and now the feeling's moved. And I've developed a habit of not seeking the feeling back out, and I work with a bunch of people that I notice do the opposite. It's almost like, well, I feel better, how surprising, but wait a minute, the circumstance hasn't changed. The reason I have the feeling hasn't changed, so therefore I shouldn't feel different. So therefore, I will now go back and endeavor to feel how I felt by thinking about the parts of the thoughts I had that were most troubling, whatever, how can I get back to that feeling? And I'm kind of trying to do neither. Like if the feeling comes up from some place, then it's time to move. Even though it's not true, it's fine. It's like, I'm gonna let it's here,
Yeah.
it's somehow become part of my now, fine. And then when it moves, because it's not as, there's not this, I've started to believe that when I say I feel sad, that seems relatively true. And when I say I feel sad and there's anything behind that, that's a whole lot less true than the shorter sentence somehow.
Yeah. Is anything coming up for anybody else that you want to share? Yeah.
Two things, one of which is more relevant for me right now. Sometimes I get this real feeling of boredom, like intense boredom. And sometimes it seems that it's that higher consciousness. I'm so sick of this shit. You know what I mean? Like this brain, exactly what you're describing. But then other times and I feel like this comes more from my ego, when I'm listening to you, there's this little chirping, like this sounds so boring, this enlightenment or whatever. Just sitting around watching the clouds I've got stuff to do. And that boredom is one of the things that I don't know, I struggle with that. And death, but that's a whole other. So the boredom is, I don't know, it's extremely uncomfortable.
What's experiencing the boredom?
I mean, it feels like my mind, but I don't know.
Yeah, pretty reliably. Looking at the sort of, what would it feel like if the machinery of suffering were shut down? What would life be like? It's just a thought. I mean, when you're actually there briefly or, in a steady way, you're not bored. So it's wonderful to, sort of ask, what is it that fears the boredom or imagines it would be like that, or, and you can see, we want to engage with something like that on the level of, is it valid or not? Is it true or not? Is this a correct thought or not? As soon as we get in there and dance with it to that extent, it's got us. But to be able to back up just a little bit and see it's a thought and leave it at that, and then return to whatever the immediate thing is, then it doesn't have us. But we're forever getting in there and dancing with it on its own terms, wanting to know, is it true, is it real, is it? you know, you said something about death, that if there was ever a true thought we could all universally have, it is that we will die. I am going to die. That's true. You've known it was true since you were sometime in childhood. So what? Does the fact that that's coming, some unknown time, unknown circumstance? Like, I mean, if the truth of a thought was the thing that determined how much we should stay aware of that particular reality out there, I mean, that's the one thing we can all absolutely know about our lives. We are going to die. Well, so what? Do you see? It's not like we're constantly seeing a shoe under the bed that keeps us forgetting it. I mean, for some of us it's true. I mean, I had a really strong thing about death, and it was a matter of like it's always there, and every once in a while I forget about it. It's madness. So I'm just saying, you know, that's an example of something. Just because it's true doesn't mean we need to be thinking about it all the time. So in your present life situation, if there's something out there that's troubling or worrisome or, you know, whatever to you or to somebody you love, is it necessary to keep thinking about it just because it's true?
Or you could just change your perception about what you think is true. Like, for instance, for death, you could think of it as it's not an ending, it's a transition. It's just part of the journey, and it's not, I mean, that's why I see it. But then, you know, I don't have, it's helped me to dispel the fear of dying by thinking of it as, it's just part of the journey of your own spirit, and it's nothing else but that. We know it's gonna come, but why fear something that's inevitable? That you know it's gonna come. I mean, you know, when the Mayan calendar predicted that 2012 was gonna be the end of the year, everybody just went into hysteric, you know, mass consciousness, panicked, and, you know, we created that. We create a lot of what those thoughts
Yes.
are. We create that. We are the creator, or the co-creator of that, you know, based upon other influences in our life. And so, you know, I find, you know, change your perception of your own thoughts, and you can let go of it and find yourself to be more in the present.
Maybe, and there's still, the thing that's enabling the greater comfort and the greater ability to be in the present, you might say, is this, there's an idea out there to touch, to take comfort from, that says, this is what death is, this is what death will be. We come up with those thoughts, virtually all of these thoughts that cause us to suffer, as a way to escape some kind of discomfort. We come up with a good idea, you know, that's this whole thing about, is it a good thought, is it a helpful thought, or is it a pain-inducing thought? You know, there's a whole lot in the culture about come up with a good way of looking at things, or what's the rest of that expression? Revision it or something. Reframe. Yeah. Oh. It's exactly, it's no different from the old way. It's no different. Now, you could say, if you're going to be in the framing business, which we all are, because we're taught to do that, you know. Look on the bright side, all that. Okay. If you're going to do that, probably yes, it's somewhat better to try to go with a positive than with a negative, but the amount of better is really tiny. The important thing is to see how we use our minds. There's a fundamental loneliness, terror, you know, whatever, that we don't want to be with. We want to protect ourselves from it. We're scared of ourselves. We're scared to feel deep feeling. So we come up with, you know, scared of death, come up with a way of story that we can tell ourselves about it. Ask yourself why you do that. You want to invest in it. You say, well, I'm going to tell myself that that's the truth. Why do we do that? We do that because it gives us some kind of comfort, some kind of feeling of security. Why do we have any body of belief about anything? Why do we have spiritual practices? You know, people, often make reference to astrological signs, because they want to be able to understand how I tick how somebody else ticks, why the world is, you know, the movements and the Mayan prophecy and all of it. We do all of that stuff because we can't bear to simply be here. Without any managing overlay, some contextual something to help us get our bearings. We want to feel safe. We want to know what is my place in the order of things. All of that. God, if you want to be free, you have to look at why you do that. I'm not saying it's all bad, it's all wrong. I'm saying it's the ego that does that. The deeply free, sweet, empty nothingness that is our fundamental nature does not seek after those things. And so when we do those things, it's not like you're supposed to beat yourself up for doing it, but recognize the fear that drives it deeply, that underlies it. And ask yourself, what would this moment, or what would my life feel like without my making reference to those things? And what comes up there? What's the feeling?
It's emptiness, emptiness, space.
Yeah. What else? Come on, be truthful. If you suspended all of that, all of those frames of reference, Robert?
Infinite possibility.
Uh-huh. Nobody
Sure.
panics?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it
Right.
goes on acceptance of what is.
Fear.
Feels like fear.
Scared.
Yeah.
Rawness.
God.
Existential dread.
Yes. Oh my
Difficult social,
God. Pardon?
difficult social,
Difficult. So,
socially.
yeah, oh, say more about that.
That's one thing that keeps me back. It's, the beauty of it is the heart's more open and compassion is there, there's less separation. But the difficult part of it is there aren't so many people there with you, and they're all trying to give you stories and trying to tell you to be looking on the positives. You know, they're continually giving you stories on how you could live your life. They don't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, their impulse to do that is out of love, and maybe it's out of love.
Yes.
They're concerned.
That's right.
Maybe they feel that you know, to some extent, these things do work for us. We wouldn't do them if they didn't.
Yeah.
But it's just to see. So it's not like it's a dirty little pleasure. If you find yourself, you keep saying, "Oh, I know why he's doing that. He's a Libra," or whatever that is. But if you let yourself, you know, feel what it is, never mind whether it's true. The ego wants to say, "Oh no, but it really is. Libras really are that way." You know, I really know this. I've been married to 4 of them. So all I'm saying is, those things we do, and you know, bodies of spiritual belief, it's no different. It's exactly the same. Okay? Yeah. It's all just another way of having a frame of reference or something to comfort or carry us along. It has a function for a time. It carries us to a point, and it, you know, makes us feel safe, makes us feel like we kind of know where we are for a time. The important thing is to see that it's artificial, it's something we have deliberately invested in because it makes us feel better or helps us know where we are, all that kind of thing. But you know, if you get stuck in it and you think this is sort of an ultimate answer, an ultimate way of accounting for the universe, you'll stay stuck in it. So, you know, is there anything coming up anybody want to say about this? Yeah, Carol.
Just about the social situation, talking about that, I have found that the more that I'm just being and awakened, and the more that other people, a lot of people are not, in the same way that the egoic mind thinks, I can figure this out, I can be you, that can be yourself. And then you mentioned that that's insanity. You know, it's insanity to think that you're in your mind or all of those different things. When you don't think that way and you're just with being, other people still think from the egoic mind point of view. And it's almost like they get defensive about whatever's happening with you. As far as when you're just in the company of people, some people are attracted to that kind of just beingness and that kind of light. And then other people seem to get actually mad at it and kind of attack you in a way that your way of being is maybe insane because they're still coming from the egoic mind kind of place. And there's like a defensiveness, like a pushback against somebody who's just being. And I just think that that's very interesting. I don't know what percentage of people are so there that they have to push back against you, but I feel that happening. Like, you're not the norm anymore. You know, the norm is to be in this, you know, insanity, you know, kind of a go with mind. And if you're not, there's some energy in the universe that doesn't like that.
And all you have to do is revisit in your body what it feels like to be that way that you're recognizing that you think someone else is being. It's familiar, you know, everybody knows what that's like, maybe from yesterday or maybe from years ago. And so there can be a tendency in that kind of situation to dislike, want to get away from, judge, you know, all of that. And so, you know, you know what I'm saying? It's like if you feel yourself thinking, why can't people get more awake? Yes, it's uncomfortable, and you may not want to stay in that situation, and you have the ability to leave it and all of that, but if you find yourself wishing other people would come along, all that kind of thing, just for a second, remember what profound unconsciousness feels like. We all know what that feels like, maybe from a minute and a half ago. Everyone, we are where we are. And there's no predicting what it's going to be like in 1 minute. And you know, well, anyway, I won't say. Somebody, yeah.
I had a two-part going back to this lady's question. One is about the boredom. I heard somebody last night bring it up as well as you today, and I've experienced it a little bit too. And I'm wondering a little bit if you could say a little bit more about it in the context that I experience it is, if I have a thinking idea of what that awareness or enlightenment state will be, it feels like, okay, I've freed up all this energy from all this emotional stuff and thinking that I was doing. All that is freed up. So if I have all this excess energy from not having to do all that story, then do I stay in that spot? That feels a little boring, but if I enter into that spot not having any idea about what that spot is, and blow myself out with all that energy and incredible possibility, it doesn't feel as boring or I need to do anything. Does that make some sense?
I thought it did for a second. Well, I'll just say two things and you can tell me if I completely missed it.
Yeah.
So whatever, the really important thing is, whatever's happening right now, what the experience is, without labeling it, without trying to understand, am I bored or not, or is this enlightenment or isn't it? The significant, overwhelmingly important thing, always, 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 is what's occurring here without the intervening filter of the mind. Feel it. Okay. Everything else is overlay. Okay.
Yes.
But also the other thing is, any conversation we can have about this, or any sort of anticipation, like what would it be like if all of the activity of the ego weren't there, then, well, what would it be like? I mean, I could say stuff all day long about, you know, what it feels like, which anybody here could probably report to.
Excellent point,
Yeah.
I'm totally on board with that. Second part is, a question around, the part I get stuck when I get into that space of feeling free of my thinking and story about myself is inevitably, the first person I come up to asks me, how are you doing? What's going on? These questions are very, very hard for me to answer without going back into, how do you answer them?
You know, I think my sense of that is, depending on who it is and how real you can be with them.
What are they actually asking?
Pardon?
What are they actually asking?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Most
yeah.
people aren't asking.
Yeah, most people don't really want to know. It's a social nicety, it's a way that we acknowledge one another, and so what, that's fine.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes I think if it's somebody that you,
Mm.
even a total stranger, you sense that you can be real,
Yeah.
or somebody that you have a relationship, that you know, there's nothing that says we have to go back into that mindset and answer in that habitual way. You can say whatever feels deeply true to you.
Yeah.
You know, that we have patterns, especially social, I think, God, especially familial,
Yeah.
where we think it's inevitable, it's necessary, there's no other thing but to do the habitual thing, and, you know, revisit that, question it, entertain the possibility in the moment that it could be otherwise, because it can, constantly. And then you're watching yourself come alive in a way in the presence of your parent or your sibling. Who knew it was possible? But we have to see the rigidity that, with which we tend to approach these situations, and how readily we let the pattern reassert itself. You have to see that functioning in order to say, wait, could this be different? God, it's so liberating. So it can be like that in one of those casual, yes.
I just wanted to say, I think the trick in that sometimes is that I find myself sort of thinking that and thinking, oh, I'm going to try to be different. There's like an effort that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than it coming from just kind of, I don't know how to describe it, you know?
Yeah. If you observe the thing that's already occurring, the propensity, the underlying assumption, the habit, instead of thinking going after something, what you'd like to see happen, instead observe what's already, the sense of limitation, the sense of habituation, expectation of how it's going to be. If you see what's occurring, that's what opens the door. It's not about trying to make it different.
You're kind of letting it come to you.
Yeah, it will. All you have to do is let that door open. But we hold the doors closed all the time because we're afraid, or we think it's got to be this way. We haven't even realized that we suppose it's got to be that way. As soon as you notice that you're supposing it's got to be that way, that there's an inevitability, the hinges are just flying. It's all about seeing what's actually occurring in you right now, not about trying to be different. And then different happens. But it's not up to us to make it happen. Do you want to stand up and go to the bathroom or anything like that? Yeah. And I want to ask you something. When you come back in, please sit in a different place from where you were before, and sit next to at least one person that you don't know.